22. So this person is not yet in their fertile window or very close to ovulation because her LH is still very low. This person had a peak on cycle day 15 at a 1.58. Look how dark the test line is. The test line is very dark compared to these other lines where we would consider this to be a negative result. This is extremely positive. This is a great sign that ovulation is about to happen. So if you have a test like this where honestly, any of these 1.11, 1.21, these are all great results to have as a peak. When you see this result, this is a good sign that ovulation is about to happen. So now you definitely want to have sex on your LH peak day and on ovulation day if you can. Remember, LH peak day and ovulation day are not the same days. They're two different days. So your LH peak day happens first, 24 hours later, which is the next day, that's ovulation day. Okay, so a big difference here with knowing exactly when LH peak is, and then ovulation day is going to be the next day. So those are two different days. If you can have sex on those 2 days, great. Now, you want to have sex in your fertile window leading up to ovulation. So what does that mean? Well, when your fertile window consists of the 5 days before you ovulate plus ovulation day. So this person ovulated on cycle day 16, right? They had a peak on cycle day 15, but ovulation is cycle day 16. So the fertile window is going to consist of the 5 days before ovulation, so cycle day 15, 14, 13, 12, and 11, plus ovulation day, which was 16. So the fertile window was cycle day 11 to cycle day 16. That's when you want to be having sex about every other day, plus your LH peak day and ovulation day. All right, so the app is going to chart the results for you, which is amazing. I love Premom app just because I'm a visual learner. I understand everything when I'm looking at images. So when I look at my chart in person and I can see where my LH is going up and where my BBT spiked, that just helps me understand so much more about my body and my cycle because I'm a visual learner. So the app is going to chart the results for you, allowing you to easily identify when you're in your fertile window. So again, color coordination, this light purple area, remember we were just talking about the fertile window, which is the 5 days before ovulation plus ovulation day. So you're going to have these light purple areas, which is going to be your fertile window leading up to ovulation. And ovulation is this dark purple day, right? So this is all considered your fertile window. Well, look at your LH. It's starting to increase slowly, slowly until it reaches peak. Why is it important that we continue using LH kits even when we have a positive result? Because we want to see if that LH is going to go up higher and higher. Had this person stopped testing on this day, which would have been July 23rd here on this day. Had this person have stopped testing on this day, they would have missed their peak because they would have said, oh, I had a positive result. That was my peak. I need to have sex today and this day, the 24th. They would have completely missed ovulation day because ovulation day wasn't until the 26th, right? So even if you get a positive result, you want to keep testing to see if does your LH continue to go up and up and up, or is it coming down? Because I get this question all the time. Well, how do I know if it's my LH peak? In reality, you don't know it's your LH peak until the next day. Why is that? Because your LH peak, again, is the highest amount of LH in your cycle. Well, on the current day, let's just say this was today, I don't know if that's the highest LH level I'm going to get. What if it's going to be higher tomorrow? Or what if today is the highest? I don't know that because I can't predict the future. So you have to keep testing tomorrow to see, did your LH go down or did it go up? Now, if your LH goes down the next day, then the day prior was your LH peak. So today would be ovulation day, right? The next day would be ovulation day. So this is definitely when you want to be having sex. Then I get the question, well, if I don't know it's my LH peak day, how do I know if I need to have sex? If you have a high LH result, that is about a 1.0 or 1.3, you should have sex that day anyways, because that's a good idea that either you are on your LH peak or you're about to reach LH peak, and ovulation is going to happen within those 24 to 36 hours. Sperm can survive up to 2 to 5 days. So you want to make sure that you're having sex during this time, especially if you have a positive ovulation test. All right, how to chart our cervical mucus, or even how to track cervical mucus, right? So cervical mucus changes due to our hormones. So remember, high estrogen levels happen right before you ovulate. High estrogen equals high fertility. So that means your cervical mucus is going to change as estrogen is increasing. It's going up, 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 up. Your cervical mucus is going to change from a dry, sticky to maybe a creamy or watery, and then it's going to become this raw egg white consistency. When you have reached this raw egg white consistency, this is your most fertile time of your whole cycle. This is only going to happen one time in your cycle. You may have raw egg white cervical mucus for a couple of days, but it's only going to be around one timeline of your cycle. You shouldn't see raw egg white cervical mucus at the beginning of your cycle, the middle of your cycle, the end of your cycle. You're only going to see it one time, and that's right during your fertile window. Again, when you see this raw egg white consistency, that means high fertility, which means this is the time to have sex if you're trying to get pregnant. All right, let's talk about basal body temperature. This is another way to help track ovulation. However, something is very key to pay attention to is we're not using basal body temperature to predict ovulation. I can't tell when I'm going to ovulate based on my temperature, but I can use BBT to help confirm that I've ovulated. Because as I mentioned earlier, progesterone is dominant in the second half of the cycle. We call that the luteal phase. As progesterone increases after you ovulate, your temperature is going to rise with the increase in progesterone. Okay, so progesterone hormone increases in the second half of the cycle, and that hormone directly correlates to your resting temperature, which is also going to increase with the increase in progesterone. So your basal body temperature is your temperature when you're fully at rest. So you can take this temperature as soon as you wake up for the day, after 3+ hours of solid sleep. Okay, this is a fertility awareness based method that a lot of people used as natural family planning, or to even help them know exactly when they're ovulating and confirm that that has actually happened for the cycle. Your BBT is going to rise again after ovulation. So I can't predict ovulation because it's not rising until after ovulation. Instead, I'm using this method to confirm that ovulation has actually happened for the cycle. So for me personally, when I'm tracking my cycle and I'm tracking my LH and my basal body temperature, when I see this big change in temperature, all my temperatures are low before I ovulate, and all my temperatures are high after I ovulate. So when I see a significant change in my temperature and it stays elevated for a couple of days here, that to me is telling me I've ovulated and I can be done LH testing for my cycle. Because I know I'm only going to get in one LH peak a cycle. I'm only going to ovulate once a cycle. So once I know that has already happened, I'm done tracking my LH. I don't need to continue. If you want to continue, by all means, you can, but you don't have to once you've confirmed that you've ovulated. How do you confirm that you've ovulated? With your BBT tracking. So this is just taking your temperature every single morning when you wake up. So you take it immediately, no eating, no drinking. Why? Because if you eat something hot or cold, or you drink something hot or cold, that's going to change your internal temperature, especially if you're tracking your temperature under your tongue. If I'm drinking a hot cup of coffee first thing I wake up in the morning and I track my temperature, well, my temperature is probably going to be like 100 degrees. I'm going to be like, oh my goodness, am I sick? Do I have a fever? No, no, no. It's because I'm just drinking hot coffee. So you want to check that temperature as soon as you wake up. before you even get out of your bed and go to the bathroom. Don't walk, talk, eat, drink. The first thing you do, reach over to your bedside table and grab your thermometer and check your temperature. We have this amazing Bluetooth thermometer with Premom. I have one. I use it all the time. I track my temperatures with it. You put it under your tongue, and it is a Bluetooth, meaning all I do is track my temperature under my tongue, and boom, the thermometer connects to my phone, and it's going to send the result to the Premom app. That's what Bluetooth is. It's going to give this result 97.5, and it's going to graph it onto my chart for me. I don't have to do anything but check my temperature. How amazing is that? It makes life so much easier when you're waking up early in the morning. You barely even have your eyes open yet, and you can't see straight in order to be putting stuff into your phone. So I love using that thermometer. Do you have to use that thermometer? No, you don't have to use that thermometer, but I recommend using a thermometer that's going to give you 2 decimal places after your 97, right? So it's going to say 97.50, not just 97.5. What if your temperature was 97.59? Well, you're pretty close to 97.6 at that point, right? Not 97.5. So I would love a little bit more information on your temperature to give us this extra decimal point here so I can see exactly what your temperature was when you woke up in the morning. You want to try to be consistent around the same time every day if you can. Does that mean you have to take your temperature at 7 a.m. every single morning? No, you don't have to. If you wake up at 7:30, you wake up at 6:45, you wake up at 8 a.m., that's fine. I'm talking about, I want you to be consistent where you take your temperature every morning when you wake up and you're pretty consistent about your sleep schedule. Now, if you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and then you're waking up at 10 a.m. and then you're waking up at 1 p.m. or something, if you have a schedule that's all over the place, that may get a little complicated. It might be a little bit harder to accurately identify what your BBT is. So I want you to try to stay consistent if you can. I know some people have schedules where this may not be possible, but I want you to try it just to see, because this can really help you on your trying to conceive journey, identify when you have ovulated, and it really can answer so many questions. I get questions all the time with Premom's Ask an Expert. How do I know if I've ovulated? I had an LH peak. Did I actually ovulate? Well, I don't know that answer. I can really help you out if you're tracking your BBT and you have that LH peak and then your BBT spikes after your LH peak like this. Then I could say, wow, it definitely looks like you've ovulated. Your temperatures were low, you ovulated, and then boom, your temperature went up and it stayed up, which is telling me you've ovulated for the cycle. So I highly recommend BBT tracking to anyone who's trying to get pregnant, who asks themselves every single month, did I actually ovulate? Because this can help you. It helped me. I used BBT tracking when I was trying to get pregnant for many months, and it just provided so much information into my life and my cycle that I highly recommend this to anyone. Now, there are different methods that you can use to track your cycle, or to track your BBT. There's a wearable one. You can have it on your hand like a watch. You have one that goes under your tongue, oral, you have vaginal, etc. There's all these different types of monitors. I want you to use the same method each time. So don't go back and forth each day. One on your wrist, one under your tongue, one on your wrist, one under your tongue. That's very inconsistent. I want you to be consistent and always do it under your tongue. Why? Because your internal temperature, which is oral, under your tongue is internal, is going to be higher than external on your wrist. So if one day you take an internal temperature under your tongue and it's 97.5, the next day I take an external temperature on my wrist and it's 96.9, well, what the heck happened? Did my progesterone just drop significantly? Well, probably not. It's probably the fact that I'm going back and forth between external and internal. Your external temperature is always going to be lower than internal, right? So very important to note that you want to use the same method every single time when you're tracking. And then, of course, you want to document your results. So if you're not using your thermometer that is Bluetooth and connects to the app, that's fine. Go into the Premom app, go to your chart, add in a result. You have to add in your BBT reading, and I just want you to document them so we can see a trend in your temperature. If you ask me, okay, I tracked my BBT, I have 3 readings. Do you think you can confirm my temperature? Or do you think you can confirm that I've ovulated? No, I need to see consistency and I need multiple readings. I can't just look at your cycle and say, oh yeah, you've ovulated off of 2 or 3 temperatures. I need multiple temperatures. I want to see what's your temperature before you ovulate, what's your temperature after you ovulate. This is like 2 weeks of temperature tracking right here. This is solid information. I mean, I need to know multiple readings and more information about you. I can't just see 1 or 2 temperatures and say, oh yeah, you ovulated, because I have nothing to compare it to. We need to see pre-ovulation and post-ovulation. So I want you checking your temperature every single day. All right, so we're just gonna wrap up with a couple of example charts before we end, just so I can kind of explain to you what the Premom app looks like and different charts and whatnot, just to kind of give you an example. Okay, so here we go. When you're tracking ovulation, again, this purple area immediately tells me that's when I'm going to be fertile of my cycle. So this cycle is a 25-day long cycle, but I can see just looking at my Premom chart, I'm going to be fertile somewhere around cycle day 10, 11, 12 in this area, because that's where the purple area is. Now, the orange and the purple, both of these are LH test strips. The purple line here is Premom, and the orange line here is Easy at Home. So I'm using 2 different ovulation tests. Is that okay? Of course, you can use multiple ovulation tests if you want. You don't have to only use one, but I recommend finding one that works best for you and just be consistent with that one. For example, I love the Easy at Home test. Those ones have always worked well for me. Those are the ones that I use. Does that mean I don't like the Premom test? No, I also love the Premom test. I just have a preference for the Easy at Home ones. So you may find that as well when you're tracking. You can use 1 or you can use 2. So this person got their LH peak on cycle day 11. That's a little early for some people. Some people won't get their peak until 14 or 15. Remember, don't compare yourself to others. Everyone's going to have a different cycle, a different chart. Your ovulation is going to be different than my ovulation, so you don't want to compare the two. All right, so they had their LH peak cycle day 11, ovulation happened on cycle day 12, and they were tracking basal body temperature. So did this person ovulate? Yeah, it looks like they did, because their temperatures were low. And then after ovulation, this is cycle day 12, cycle day 13 and 14 started to go up just slightly, but cycle day 15 is really when the temperature went up, and then it continued to go up. So to me, it looks like this person for sure ovulated. They timed sex appropriately. Look at this. They were having sex during their fertile window. They had sex on ovulation day. That's what these hearts mean. And then they had sex in their luteal phase, and that's fine as well. So perfect. And they also charted cervical mucus. Notice the couple of days before ovulation. Ovulation was this day, cycle day 12. 2 days before ovulation, they documented changes in cervical mucus. This is a picture perfect chart. I love it. We've got 3 different biomarkers to go off of. We have our LH peak, we have our cervical mucus, and we have our basal body temperature. This is exactly a perfect scenario of what we're looking for. I love this. Next sample chart. All right, this person they also used 2 different test strips, which is completely fine. They had an LH peak on cycle day 18. All right, compare the 2 real fast. The last one was cycle day 11. This one was cycle day 18. Is there anything wrong with either one of them? No. Are they both normal, perfectly healthy cycles? It looks like it. It doesn't look like anything is wrong with them. So you can get an LH peak on a different day than someone else, and that's absolutely okay. All right. So they had their LH peak. The next day they ovulated. Boom, look at this temperature. It went up. So this is telling me that this person ovulated with this cycle, because their temperature was low, 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 and then boom, right after they ovulated, their temperature started to go up. Again, timing sex in the fertile window. They had sex the day before the LH peak and the day of LH peak. Perfect. I love that. Also, cervical mucus changes. Again, look at the changes in cervical mucus leading up to ovulation. This is another perfect example of tracking your cycle. We've got LH tracking, we've got basal body temperature tracking, and we've got cervical mucus, as well as some other symptoms, and documenting, of course, when you had sex. Again, I love this chart. This is very informative of what's going on with this person's cycle. Do I question whether or not they ovulated? No, it looks like for sure to me that they've ovulated. Do I question if they had sex at the right time? No. Do I question were they fertile because they had cervical mucus? No, because they absolutely documented cervical mucus there. So again, beautiful chart, absolutely happy, and just all around, they did a really good job at tracking and showing us that they are ovulating and they are having sex at the right time. All right, do we have any questions or things that we need to discuss afterwards? I don't see anything in the Q&A. It looks like those have been answered.
Yeah, a lot of questions were answered by our team members on the chat, on the Q&A.
Perfect. One thing that I do want to mention real quickly, I would love to discuss this question because I don't think I mentioned it. Somebody asked, does ovulation day change every cycle? I know that this was answered, but I don't know if everyone can see the answer. Ovulation day can change every cycle, absolutely. So you can have a variance in your follicular phase. Remember, the follicular phase is the first half of the cycle. So ovulation can change depending on how long that follicular phase is. It can range anywhere from 10 days, 14 days, 16 days. There's definitely ovulation can change cycle to cycle, which is why it is so important that you're tracking ovulation, because it's not always going to be the same. So great question. Thank you.
Kacie, would you
Cool.
also address there was a question about why somebody has
Somebody gains access to a business email account. They can impersonate someone you trust to defraud your organization. For example, they may
say it again. I can't hear you. Somebody's playing something.
Sorry, she was asking, she's having a 12-day long period, and it's also there's a lot of brown blood in it. So
anything related to bleeding, as far as like how long you're bleeding or the coloration of it, if it's abnormal and it's outside of what you see every single cycle. So if you normally have a 5-day period where it's red and then maybe it changes to brown and spotting at the end, and that's what's normal for you. If you have anything outside of normal, you always need to go to your healthcare provider, because I don't know why that's happening. Could there be something going on in the uterus? Could there be something going on with a hormone level? There could, but you definitely would have to be evaluated by a healthcare provider, especially if it comes to bleeding. If you're having heavy bleeding, irregular long bleeding, different colors in your bleeding, definitely something that you would want to talk to a healthcare provider about.
okay.
Awesome. All right, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And yeah, that's it from me. So if there's anything else we need to cover.
Does anyone have any more questions? I think we are good.
Perfect. Well, thanks for everybody coming to our webinar.
So thank you so much, Ms. Kacie. We also had about 14 viewers viewing on YouTube Live, and it was pretty amazing, I believe. And most of them have got an overview on how to use the app, how Premom helps them with ovulation tracking, their LH and BBT, where a lot of questions came in from our Indian users. So I thank you so much, everyone who are watching us via YouTube and also who have joined us live on Zoom. Thank you for coming in, and we are going to be hosting more webinars, and we expect in the future days with more participants. And thank you, the team, for the support. And I hope all the questions were answered today, and hope to see you soon.
Perfect.
And
thank you.
Wish you all a very happy Women's Day.
Yes, happy Women's Day. Thanks.
Happy
Bye.